Imagine waking up one morning, checking your phone, and finding out that your visa to the United States has been revoked overnight. No warning, no appeal, no explanation beyond a brief government statement. Your business meetings in New York, canceled. Your family visit to California, impossible. Your conference in Washington, gone. Just like that. This is not a hypothetical scenario. This is the reality that dozens of Iranian officials and their family members are facing right now in 2026, as the United States government has announced one of its most sweeping and targeted visa bans in recent years. And if you think this only affects government officials in Tehran, you are deeply mistaken. The ripple effects of this policy touch students, academics, business people, dual nationals, and ordinary Iranian families who have loved ones in America or who dream of going there themselves. So, before you assume this has nothing to do with you, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what has changed, who is affected, what the legal implications are, and what options exist for those caught in the middle of this geopolitical storm. Welcome to USA Visa Explained, the channel where we break down the most complex and consequential American immigration and visa policies into clear, honest, and actionable information. Whether you are an immigration professional, a student planning to study in the United States, a family trying to reunite across borders, or simply someone who wants to understand how American foreign policy translates into real-life consequences for real people, this is the right place for you. Today, we are diving deep into the 2026 visa ban on Iranian officials. We will cover the legal framework, the history that led to this moment, the specific categories of people affected, and what this means going forward. This is a big topic, and we are going to give it the serious treatment it deserves. So let us get into it. To understand what is happening right now, we need to go back a few years, because this 2026 policy update did not come out of nowhere. The relationship between the United States and Iran has been one of the most complicated and fraught diplomatic relationships in the world for decades. Since the Iranian Revolution of 1979 and the subsequent hostage crisis, the two countries have had no formal diplomatic relations. That alone makes the visa situation between the two nations uniquely complex. Over the years, the United States has used visa restrictions as a tool of foreign policy toward Iran on multiple occasions. Under the Obama administration, certain sanctions were eased following the signing of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, commonly known as the Iran nuclear deal, in 2015. Iranian scientists, academics, and some officials had slightly easier access to American visas during this period, though still heavily restricted. Then came the Trump administration's sweeping travel ban in 2017, which included Iran as one of the countries whose nationals faced severe restrictions on entering the United States. This ban was challenged in courts, upheld by the Supreme Court, and remained in effect for years. The Biden administration then partially walked back some of these restrictions while maintaining others, particularly those tied to national security concerns and sanctions violations. And now, in 2026, the current administration has announced a new targeted and expanded visa ban, specifically directed at Iranian government officials, military leadership, members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, judiciary officials, and their immediate family members. This is not simply a continuation of old policies. This is a deliberate and specifically structured new measure with its own legal basis, its own list of targeted individuals and categories, and its own implications for Iranian society and for the global Iranian diaspora. So what exactly does the 2026 visa ban say? Let us break it down carefully. The announcement made by the State Department outlines several key components. First, it expands the list of categories of Iranian nationals who are ineligible for United States visas. This includes senior officials of the Iranian government at the ministerial level and above, members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and affiliated organizations, members of the Iranian judiciary involved in the prosecution or imprisonment of political dissidents, journalists, and human rights defenders, provincial governors, and local officials who have been involved in the suppression of civilian protests, and individuals involved in the production, transfer, or development of weapons or technology that the United States considers a threat to regional or global security. Second, the ban explicitly extends to the immediate family members of these individuals. This is one of the most significant and controversial elements of the new policy. Spouses, children, and in some cases parents of the listed individuals are also barred from obtaining American visas. The rationale given by the State Department is that extending the ban to family members increases pressure on officials and reduces the ability to use family travel as a workaround. The critics, however, and there are many, argue that this punishes innocent people for the actions of their relatives, which raises serious ethical and legal questions. Third, the ban includes a mechanism for the revocation of existing visas. This means that individuals who already hold valid American visas but fall into the newly defined categories could have those visas canceled without applying for a new one. If you are currently holding a visa and your circumstances bring you into one of these categories, or if a family member's status changes, your existing visa could be at risk. Fourth, the policy includes provisions for how exceptions can be requested. There is a process by which individuals who believe they have been incorrectly categorized or who have compelling humanitarian reasons for needing to travel to the United States can submit a request for a waiver. However, and this is crucial, these waivers are extremely difficult to obtain. The process is opaque, and the approval rate for Iran-related waivers has historically been very low. Now, let us talk about the broader legal framework that makes this visa ban possible. The United States Secretary of State has broad authority under the Immigration and Nationality Act, specifically Section 212F, to restrict or deny entry to foreign nationals when it is determined that their entry would be detrimental to the interests of the United States. This is the same legal authority that was used for earlier travel bans, and it has been consistently upheld by American courts. In addition, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act gives the executive branch significant authority to impose financial and travel-related restrictions in the context of declared national emergencies. The national emergency with respect to Iran has been in effect and renewed continuously since 1979. This gives the current administration broad legal latitude to implement and expand visa restrictions without requiring congressional approval. This is important context because it means that the visa ban can be implemented quickly, can be expanded or modified by executive action, and is difficult to challenge legally. Immigration lawyers have noted that while individual visa denials can sometimes be challenged, the categorical bans themselves have generally survived legal scrutiny in American courts, particularly when framed in terms of national security. Let us now talk about the people most directly affected, and let us be honest about who that really is. The stated targets of this ban are Iranian government officials and military figures. But in practice, the impact of American visa policy toward Iran is felt far more broadly than the official statements suggest. Consider the Iranian academic community. Iran has a highly educated population with a long tradition of scientific and intellectual achievement. Thousands of Iranian students and researchers study or work in the United States every year. While they are not the direct targets of this ban, the broader atmosphere created by escalating visa restrictions, increased scrutiny, and the fear of guilt by association has a chilling effect on the entire community. Iranian students applying for American student visas already face significantly longer wait times, higher rates of denial, and more intense security checks than applicants from most other countries. The 2026 policy update adds another layer of uncertainty and fear to this already difficult situation. Then there are the Iranian Americans, a community of approximately 1 million people living in the United States, many of whom have family members still in Iran. Some of these family members may have worked for the government in roles that are now categorized as falling under the visa ban. A relative who worked as a municipal official, a professor at a state university, or an engineer in a state-owned company could potentially find themselves within the expanded ban categories. And because the categories are broad and the implementation details are still being worked out, there is significant anxiety within the community about who exactly is affected. Dual nationals, people who hold both Iranian nationality and the nationality of another country, also face a complicated situation. While American policy is primarily directed at people seeking to enter the United States from Iran, dual nationals who travel with their non-Iranian passport can sometimes navigate these restrictions. However, Iran does not recognize dual nationality, and the American government's expanding definition of who falls under the ban creates new risks for dual nationals in both directions. And then there is the humanitarian angle. What about Iranian nationals who are married to American citizens? What about Iranian children who were born in Iran but whose parents are American? What about Iranian patients seeking medical treatment in the United States, or Iranian families who want to attend the graduation, the wedding, or the funeral of an American relative? These are not abstract scenarios. These are real situations that real people are dealing with right now, and the visa ban makes all of them harder, more expensive, more uncertain, and more emotionally devastating. Let us talk about what has driven this decision at the political level, because understanding the motivation helps predict what might come next. The official justification offered by the State Department focuses on several issues: Iran's continued nuclear program and what the United States describes as insufficient cooperation with international inspectors, Iran's support for armed groups in the Middle East that the United States designates as terrorist organizations, Iran's crackdown on domestic protests, particularly the ongoing repression of dissidents, journalists, and women's rights activists, and the transfer of Iranian drones and other military technology to Russia for use in the war in Ukraine. Each of these issues is real, and each has its own complex history. But foreign policy experts and immigration analysts note that visa bans of this kind have a mixed track record when it comes to actually changing government behavior. Iran's government has shown considerable resilience in the face of Western sanctions and travel restrictions over the past 4 decades. The officials most directly targeted by visa bans are, in many cases, not people who were planning to travel to the United States anyway. Their access to other countries, Russia, China, Venezuela, and various others, remains intact. So the practical pressure on the Iranian government itself may be limited. What is less limited is the impact on ordinary Iranians and on the Iranian diaspora. And this creates a genuine tension at the heart of American policy toward Iran. The United States says it supports the Iranian people and opposes only the Iranian government, but policies like this one make it harder for ordinary Iranians to study, work, reunite with family, or build connections with the American people. Critics on both sides of the political spectrum have raised this point, arguing that visa restrictions of this kind end up harming those they are meant to support. Now, let us talk about what you can do if you are affected, or if you are worried about being affected by this policy update. First, and most importantly, get accurate information from reliable sources. The situation is still developing, and the specific implementation details of the 2026 policy are still being clarified by the State Department. Do not rely on rumors, social media speculation, or unofficial sources. The official State Department website, the website of the Department of Homeland Security, and reputable immigration law firms that specialize in Iranian cases are your best sources of current, accurate information. Second, if you believe you or a family member may fall within one of the affected categories, consult with a qualified immigration attorney as soon as possible. The window of time between a policy announcement and its full implementation can sometimes provide opportunities to take protective steps, but only if you act quickly and with proper legal guidance. Third, if you are an Iranian national currently in the United States on a valid visa, understand your rights and your status. A visa ban affects the ability to obtain or renew a visa. It does not automatically mean that your current legal status in the United States is immediately revoked. Although, as we mentioned earlier, visa revocations for existing holders in certain categories are possible. Fourth, if you are a student or researcher planning to apply for an American visa, be aware that processing times and scrutiny levels are likely to increase in the coming months as agencies adjust to the new policy. Plan accordingly, apply early, and make sure your documentation is complete and accurate. Fifth, stay engaged with advocacy organizations that work on Iranian American issues and on immigration rights more broadly. Organizations like the National Iranian American Council and various legal aid groups are closely monitoring the situation and can provide updated guidance and sometimes direct assistance. And now let us zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because this visa ban does not exist in isolation. It is part of a broader pattern of how the United States uses immigration and visa policy as an instrument of foreign policy. We have seen similar approaches used toward Cuba, Venezuela, Russia, Belarus, and various other countries. The mechanisms are similar: executive authority, national security justifications, broad categories that can be interpreted expansively, and family member provisions that extend the reach of the restrictions. What is different in the Iran case is the depth of history and the sheer complexity of the affected population. The Iranian diaspora is one of the most highly educated and economically successful immigrant communities in the world. The connection between Iranians in America and Iranians in Iran is not simply a political or diplomatic connection. It is a profound human connection of family, culture, language, and shared history. And that is what makes policies like this one so painful, so contested, and so consequential beyond the realm of geopolitics. The 2026 visa ban on Iranian officials is, at its core, a foreign policy decision, but its effects are deeply personal for millions of people. It will determine whether a grandmother in Tehran can attend her grandson's college graduation in Texas. It will determine whether an Iranian scientist can present her research at a conference in Boston. It will determine whether a young person in Isfahan who dreams of studying in California has any realistic path to making that dream real. These are not small things. These are the stakes of visa policy when it intersects with human lives. At USA Visa explained, our mission is to make sure that you understand exactly what these policies mean, not just in legal terms, but in human terms. Because immigration law is not abstract. It is one of the most direct ways that governments exercise power over people's lives, and the more you understand it, the better equipped you are to navigate it, to advocate for yourself and your family, and to make informed decisions about your future. If this video has given you even one piece of useful information or helped you see this issue more clearly, then share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Post it in your community groups. The people who most need this information are often the ones who are least likely to find it on their own. Help us change that. If you have questions about your specific situation, write them in the comments below. We read every comment and we do our best to respond or to point you toward the right resources. And if you want us to go deeper on any aspect of this topic, the waiver process, the legal challenges, the impact on specific visa categories, or the comparative history of American visa bans, tell us. We will make that video. Subscribe to USA Visa Explained if you have not already. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update, because in a world where immigration policy can change overnight, being informed is not just an advantage, it is a necessity. The United States has spoken on its visa policy toward Iranian officials in 2026. Now you know what it means, who it affects, and what you can do. Stay informed, stay prepared, and we will see you in the next video.